Hey folks, it's Rob here with another Ask Rob Anything. And this is where a member of our community, an annual member, gets to have the opportunity to actually ask me a tricky, curly question and see if they can actually stump the guru. And today we have Vicky Gardner, who's got a question for me to see how you can stump me. Vicky, what have we got today? How can I help?
Well, this one is more for the newbies in that I am currently a real estate agent. I'm quite au fait with RPData and ownership data and land checker, but the development world is very, very different and there is so much software to look at. You've got Stash, Investor, Archistar, your own national property data, and I get people ask me all the time that are in the development game who are also new and wanting to do their own deals, which one should I be using? And I actually don't know because I only know the agent side. So where do we start, Rob? What are we looking at?
Great questions, great questions. That's what I love to hear. So firstly, I'm going to start by saying there are two very distinct categories of software package out there that we want to start to utilize, and they each serve very different purposes. So you mentioned a couple of them. So RPData, Pricefinder, and National Property Data, which, as you know, I have an association with. So those three are what I would call sales research tools. So they are going to help you to understand I guess what's happening in the market right now. What is the property actually worth? So what should the raw site sell for? What should the finished product sell for? So then when you plug it into a feasibility, you know what you should be paying to buy a property and what you should be generating from a revenue perspective to sell the property, okay? The second category is, I guess, development potential. So that development potential, the development potential is, what is the yield we can actually get out of it? Can we get 2 lots, 3 lots, 5 lots, that sort of thing? What are the rules under which council can actually do? And so that's where you've got your stashes, your land checkers, your Archistars, etc., that actually fall into those categories. So we want to keep them as two very distinctly separate tools. So let's have a look at the sales research side of things and I guess what people are familiar with, and then what are some of their options that are actually sitting out there. So you've mentioned, I guess, the market leader, RPData. You're very familiar with that. That's been around for a very long time and I guess, has come from the position of serving real estate agents, I guess, primarily in being able to work out how do we actually work out what a property is actually going to sell for when an agent is actually going to put it on the market, okay? It was never really intended for, I guess, the end market, which ended up being valuers and developers and investors and all that sort of thing, who then started to use it. So it was primarily developed for agents and now I guess trying to be utilized in many, many different ways. And so the architecture that sits behind that is a little bit different to the architecture of some of the other tools, okay? So they get their data from multiple sources. So they get it from I guess the titles office or the valuer general, depending upon which state you're in. They get it from the agents who do listing data. They get it from the councils where they get their zoning information and all those sorts of things. But each one of those pieces of information is stored in a silo all by itself. And they only get to search against one of those silos, and then they display the information on the others. So you can see what the zoning is, and you can see what the listing information was, but you can't search against those. You can only search against the titles information. Okay, so what is actually on record? Okay. When you get to the more modern tools, so National Property Data being, I guess the upcomer and the new to the market upstart, they allow you to actually search against all of those silos at the same time. So you can combine searches against it. So you can search against some information that's on the title. So that might be the size of the property, for example. You can search for some information against the council zoning information. So, you know, what zoning is it actually in? And you can also search for other pieces of information that has some development potential. So it might be, for example, the frontage of the property. You can also search against the listing. So is it on market right now? You can combine all of those together into the one single search and come up with many, many things that you can't do in the other tools. So for example, we could do, show me, I guess, this zoning with this land size that's currently on the market that has a minimum frontage of 20 meters, right? Now, wow, that kind of information just can't be done with the other tools. Okay. Yep. the limitations of RPData and Pricefinder because of their architecture mean that because they're only searching against the titles information, they can't determine is the product a townhouse or an apartment, for example. They display it, but you can't search against it. So if you're trying to find what does my finished product sell for, and you're trying to create townhouses as an example, you can't search for show me all the townhouses. You have to search for what the titles information call it, and the titles information call it a unit. So you have to search all the units and then go, is it an apartment? Is it a townhouse? Is it a manor house?
Yes.
Okay. Whereas National Property Data combined that with the listing information. The agent said it was an apartment, so therefore show me the apartments. The agent said it was a townhouse, so then show me the townhouses. So by combining those together, it means that you can do much more granular searches. You'll be much more efficient and effective in how you actually do that. So your sales research gets faster and faster and faster by using the more modern technologies.
Awesome.
The other thing that you can do with National Property Data that you can't do with the others at all, as a matter of fact, this is the only tool out there at all can do this, is you can search for what is called a splitter block. So a property that has one title but multiple lots on it, which is a pre-approval to separate the titles without needing to have development approval from council to create subdivided property without having to go through all the rigmarole and approvals, etc. So National Property Data is the only tool out there that can actually do that. So from a sales research perspective, National Property Data is the winner. Okay, that, and it's cheaper, right? So, so why wouldn't you use it? So
and splitter blocks is the strategy I want to do. So,
well, then we're on to a winner. Okay. So then the next category is then your development research. So that is, look, we know what the raw site is going to sell for, but what can we actually do with that property? So what's the zoning, the constraints, the overlays, the issues and challenges that are actually sitting on that property that will determine, can you reach the maximum potential for that site? Okay. Now, by doing that, what we're trying to say is, can I get 2 lots out of it, 3 lots, 5? How many townhouses can I get there? What's the yield going to be like? All those sorts of things that development research tool is actually going to do. Now, you have a small, medium, and large version of that, because the information that you need to do that, it takes quite a bit of data gathering and number crunching to actually do. Now, there is the absolute free way to do that. So depending upon the state that you're in, I'm pretty sure that you're in Victoria, but the state government in Victoria and New South Wales and South Australia and others, the state government has a free tool, the planning portal, where you can actually search for the development potential for the site and also the constraints that actually sit over it. Okay. If you're in places like Queensland, that's not done at a state level, that's done at a local government level. So you have to search on each individual council, but those planning portals allow you to do that for free. The problem is they only give you a limited amount of data, and it's really what council is putting from a constraints perspective. Typically, what we want to do is we want to start to stack that on with other pieces of information that we might get from other places. So we might want to look at easements, for example, that might be sitting on the property. We might want to look at what the aerial photography of the area is to see what has changed in the last little while and see what other developments are actually happening. We might want to see how many development approvals have happened in the area, etc. So as you start to use more and more tools, better and better tools, they start to stack information in there. So you're layering information on top of information on top of information. So you're much faster at being able to assess a site. So for example, if you want to do 6 townhouses in an area, you'd be able to very quickly, using some of the other tools, see what development approvals have happened with other properties that have got 6 townhouses. You can then start to do that sort of research. So as you start to go up the stack, okay, so Land Checker is a more budget entry level version of that. Oh, Vicky's being interrupted.
Sorry.
And we're back. And we're back, folks. So Land Checker is a more, if you're cost conscious, it's a more budget entry level version of that, but it hasn't got as much information actually stacked over the top. Okay. If you the challenge with that is then you have to do a heck of a lot of additional research. If you want to do it for free, you've got to go and gather all the extra information in lots of different sources. If you pay a small fee, then you get a lot of information in one spot, but still have to supplement that in other places. And if you pay for, I guess, the Rolls-Royce, something like an Archistar, then they can jam more and more information. So you've got one place that you're going to get all the information, so you don't have to go everywhere. It really comes down to efficiency of time and what your time is worth. If you want to do it on a budget, you're going to burn more time, but you're going to spend a lot less cash. If you want to do it more efficiently and more effectively, you're going to spend a little bit more money, but you're going to be faster and faster and be able to look at more properties in less time. Typically, what I find in our industry as people are getting into the process, as they're starting to learn, they want to try the free tools first because they're not sure whether or not they're going to get success, and they're dabbling, they're trying to work it out. Okay. As they start to get momentum, as they start to get success, they start to graduate into something like a land checker. And as they start to get some profits out of some deals, they start to graduate into something like Archistar, and they get better and better and better, faster and faster, until, I guess, the big end of town, the more professional developers are using something like Archistar. Okay.
Fantastic.
Now, all of those, that being said, I know that, I guess, in talking to the team at Archistar and others, that they are trying to create more budget conscious tools to compete with, I guess, the more entry level things like Land Checker. So those sorts of things, watch this space. I think that's actually going to come out in time. But so in short, out of the two sets of tools, National Property Data is the clear winner. the clear winner. If you are budget conscious, you can do for free with the portals. If you want to be a little bit more efficient, you can do, I guess, a budget entry. If you want to be really super efficient at what you want to do, go for an Archistar type tool. So the old small, medium, and large, but you will get a lot more bang for your buck if you have the budget to actually spend on the better tools. So there you go. Hope that helps.
Fantastic. Very helpful. Thank you, Rob.
You're going to tell all your real estate agents and friends and new developers, National Property Data tool is the tool.
Yes. Yes.
Very good.
Definitely.
Very good. Well, folks out there in PDN land, if you would like to ask me a question, if you are an annual member, then you can click on the links below and you can ask Rob anything and see if you can stump the guru. So until then, I hope to see you at one of our upcoming meetups or somewhere online, one of my Sunday sessions or the like. So until then, bye for now. See you, folks.
Thanks, Rob.